Hi, my name is Katie and I'm part of the Strategic Content Development team here at Blackbaud. This is the first video in our series on assessments, and we're starting at the very beginning with the assessment settings. To get started, we can add assessments from the Assignment Center or by selecting a class and the assignments page. Select Add, then choose Assessment. Today we're working with the New Assessment Builder, so we'll select Create New Assessment when prompted. In the Details section, we'll configure some basic settings like the assessment name and assignment type. We can also set a time limit for students to complete the assessment. If I have a student who needs extra time, I can select Adjust Individual Student Times and assign a different time limit for that specific student. This is great for accommodating students that may have an IEP or 504 plan. Then we need to decide how we want questions to appear for students, one at a time or listed all together. And we'll select how many attempts students can submit. I'm going to give my students 2 attempts on this particular assessment. We can mark randomized questions if we want to shuffle the question order for students. I may have some questions that build on each other, so I'm going to leave this option disabled. We also have the option to randomize multiple choice answers. With this enabled, the answers are shuffled so they're not in the same order for every single student. We can mark this option here to randomize the answers for all multiple choice questions, or we can mark the option on individual questions once we start adding them in our assessment builder. And our last setting under Details is allow students to resume independently. This is great for open book assessments that students might start and want to come back to later. If this option is disabled and a student closes out of their assessment without submitting, the teacher will have to allow the student to continue their assessment before they can access it again. Now we get into the evaluation settings for our assessment. Most of these options will look familiar from regular assignments. The main difference is that in addition to setting the maximum points possible for the assessment, we'll also need to decide if those points are divided equally or assigned per question. If we select Assigned per question, then we'll assign a point value to each of our questions as we add them in the builder. Next, we have the Student Results page options. This is where we determine if students can see their assessment results, when they can see the results, and what details are displayed for them. We have to enable the first option here, Show Results Page to students once they have submitted the assessment, and then we can enable additional options as needed. For instance, I may choose to show the question and earned points on the results page, but not the correct answers. Finally, we have the publishing options. This is where I tie the assessment to my classes and configure the dates associated with the assessment. I created this assessment from my English class, so that class is already selected here. I can add the assessment for more of my classes if I need to. By default, the assessment is assigned to all students enrolled in the class, but I can select Edit here and assign it to specific students if I need to. We also have 2 date settings in the publishing options, the Assign Date and Due Date. These dates and times determine when students can take the assessment. They cannot start the assessment before the assigned date and time, and they cannot submit it after the due date and time. We also have a Publish setting. This determines when students can see the assessment listed in their assignments. If I set Publish to Assign Date, and my assigned date is in the future, then students won't see the assessment until they're able to take it. So for instance, if I wanted to spring a pop quiz on my class, I'd set my assigned date to the date and time the class meets and set Publish to Assigned Date. Then students won't have any advance warning of the pop quiz coming their way. On the other hand, if I want students to see that an assessment is coming up, I can set Publish to Now, and students will see the assessment as upcoming until we reach the assigned date and time. But before students can take their assessment, I need to build the questions and mark my assessment ready for taking. We'll have more on that in the next video. For now, I'm done with my settings, so I'll select Save. If at any point I need to access the settings again, I can select Edit to open the Assessment Builder, then select Edit Details to access the settings page. Stay tuned for the next video in our assessment series, where we look at building our assessment questions and content.